everyone, welcome to another Underrated Film Saturday. Apologize I had to delay this video. Unfortunately, my computer was not working over the weekend, so it needed to get fixed. But it is fixed now, so I should be up and loaded and ready and caught up by the end of today. So without further ado, let me address the film that I wanted to talk about briefly, and that is Snatch. Yes, this is a rather interesting film because usually I don't explore heist-related films or gangster-related films, unless you're talking about The Godfather or Goodfellas. So I thought it'd be interesting to kind of explore one that's not really as well known, and I think deserves maybe a little bit more attention if you're sort of interested in these kinds of films. But basically, I think one of the reasons why this film got pushed under the bus was because there are a lot of European actors. There are people that I think a lot of general moviegoers probably wouldn't have heard of as far as the actors. I mean, Brad Pitt is probably the most recognizable name within the film. But there's a lot of other actors that do actually a really good job, but they're not really as well explored. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they are European based, and in America we're more familiar, I think, with American actors. So I think that's one of the reasons why maybe this film didn't get as much hype or recognition as maybe it could have within the United States. Also, the fact that it's one of the it's not only I think the actors, even though again we have the Brad Pitt character, even though he's not really one of the main characters. He's a main character, but not one of the top three maybe. But regardless, it's also I think due to the way in which the film is styled as well. I can see why there might be some people who might be turned off by the way in which it approaches certain ways in which scenes are played out. Like it'll speed up certain points, sometimes to sort of a comedic effect, other times in an action-packed sense. And I can sort of understand why that would have deterred the more mainstream audiences from really kind of getting invested or interested with this particular film. So I think that's also something else that's important to note of. But basically what I think stands out about this particular film is not only do you have really good performances by pretty much the entire cast, but you also get a very interesting story, or at least stories that kind of really go on within this film. And you also get a lot of dynamic and interesting characters, even though they're pretty much all bad guys. So it kind of follows the sort of good fella angle. But basically, the main character is played by Jason Statham. And his name is Turkish, and basically he is an illegal boxing promoter. And he eventually gets this boxer named Mickey, who is played by Brad Pitt, to duke it out with another boxer. And as this fight is sort of being carried out and you sort of see the outcome, there's also another angle to this story as well, which involves Frankie Four Fingers, who's played by Benicio del Toro, and he's basically a gangster who has a big gambling problem. And that his part of the story sort of comes in when it involves a stolen diamond that he ultimately wants to sell. So you'll see how it converges with Jason Statham's character and Brad Pitt's character and every other character that's essentially involved within this entire plot, and how it kind of all interconnects. So there's the boxing angle, and there's also this sort of heist and precious diamond money angle. So you got those two things going on within this film, and you see sort of how they end up converging together. Um, and I think the way in which the film presents all of this uh, is actually rather interesting, and they do add a certain level of complexity to it, and they do make the characters very intimidating, and they do show you the kind of grit that you would come to expect from a film like this. So it's kind of nice to see that, unlike some other gangster type films that try to be a little bit more suave and sophisticated, like for example, The Godfather and Goodfellas. So here it's very raw, and is also very intense and also sometimes comedic too. So it tries to play around with a lot of different moods, but at the same time, it's has its quirks, but then it also has its intense moments as well. So it's a very interesting film overall. And I obviously understand why this particular film wouldn't be for everyone. And I understand why it may or may not turn people off in certain respects. Uh, but I think it is worthy of a recommendation if you enjoy these kinds of gangster style films that involve exploring a bunch of bad guys and sort of how they all kind of interconnect with one another and how they ultimately kind of get out of the conflicts that they're in, or basically what the resolutions end up, what resolutions ultimately end up coming about the when they get into the various conflicts that they get into. So I think that's really ultimately all I can say though about this film without really giving too much away. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care.